Uh, Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. First of all, my heartfelt thanks to all of you to joining this special webinar as a part of our CIRDAP Knowledge Series 2025. So today, this webinar is based on the International Women's Day 2025, but the title is very specific: the Women in Agriculture and Rural Development, Empowering Change. So for this special webinar, we have with us our honorable speaker, Dr. Jacquelin Hughes, ma'am. Ma'am, welcome. Thank you for giving us your morning time over here, over there in your country. Thank you so much, ma'am. So, Dr. Jacquelin Hughes, ma'am, is Secretary General, World Agriculture Forum, Royal Institute Tropics, based in Amsterdam, Netherlands. So, first, I would like to request our Honorable Director General, Dr. P. Chandrasekhara, sir, for giving the welcome remarks and for the introduction of the speaker. Sir.
Thank you, Hurain. Greetings from Center on Integrated Rural Development in Asia and Pacific, known as CIRDAP, based at Dhaka. Work for 15 Asian and Pacific countries for strengthening rural development activities. On behalf of I would like to extend a warm welcome to today's esteemed speaker, Dr. Jacquelin Hughes, and all the who are here and who are going to join. I mean, in advance, I welcome to everyone. Thank you, Dr. Jacquelin, for sparing your valuable time and agreeing for our request and sharing your views on women in agriculture and rural development. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate everyone here on the occasion of International Women's Day. Even though it was celebrated on 8th for the community of member countries, we have kept this webinar today to reach more people. Before I request the Honorable Speaker, I would like to take 1 minute for introducing my organization. CIRDAP organization, autonomous organization, works for Asian and Pacific around 15 countries, starting from India, Pakistan to basically our focus is on strengthening integrated rural development through research, training, policy advocacy, sharing good practices, and many more other academic activities. It is my privilege now to welcome again and introduce esteemed speaker Dr. Jacquelin Hughes. Dr. Jacquelin Hughes is currently embracing the role of Secretary General of World Agriculture Forum based in Netherlands. She is the former Director General of International Research Institute for Semi-Arid Tropics, ICRISAT, headquartered in Hyderabad, India. That was the time I had the opportunity to work with Jacquelin on some of the programs. Thank you very much for the heartful cooperation extended for those collaborative activities. Dr. Jacquelin also Deputy Director General Research, IRRI Philippines, and also Deputy Director General World Vegetable Center. Her extensive career by groundbreaking work in sustainable agriculture equips her to steer the forum towards its mission. Hughes has over 3 decades of experience in agriculture research for development and is highly for leadership in tackling the pressing global challenges of food insecurity, sustainable agriculture, and rural development in some of the world's most vulnerable regions. Trained in the United Kingdom, Dr. Hughes holds a PhD from Reading University and the postdoctoral work before working with national partners in Ghana. Throughout her career, Dr. Hughes has held international leadership positions in prestigious agricultural institutes across Africa and Asia, for understanding of the unique challenges faced by these regions. Technology, Dr. Hughes has strong interest in remote sensing, digitization, and gender equity. She continues to champion the integration of modern technologies, planned quarantine best practices, and the ethical use of intellectual property to enhance agriculture outcomes. She believes in both working locally for global impact and working globally for local impact. As a former Director General of ICRISAT, she aptly led the institute through global pandemic, achieving significant milestones despite unprecedented challenges. Under her able leadership, ICRISAT was honored with Africa Food Prize 2021. She also played a role when G20 events were held in India. I recall she served as co-chair of the International Steering Committee for the United Nations International Year of Millets. And I was also privileged to take part in 50th anniversary celebration of ICRISAT. Thank you for that invitation during that time. With this brief introduction, now I would request Dr. Jacquelin to share her views, coming straight from her lifetime experiences. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What an introduction. So Dr. Chandrasekhara, the CIRDAP team, honored members of the audience, good evening to some of you, good afternoon, and good morning for those nearer to my own time zone. I'll just warn you that I have given myself the challenge of speaking to you without slides because I wanted to connect with you all on this really important topic around International Women's Day, because these days, although as the DG has just said, it was a couple of days ago, nonetheless, the days raise awareness about pressing issues, they mobilize political will and celebrate humanity's achievements. We find these observances, they're powerful tools for advocacy, and the international agencies such as the UN entities, the World Agriculture Forum, CIRDAP, who's hosting this webinar, and all our national partners use these days to shine a spotlight on important issues and drive actions. As the DG said, I am Secretary General of the World Agriculture Forum, and we envision a transformative future where global agriculture, particularly for my interest, the smallholder farmers, thrive through innovation, dynamic growth, exceptional productivity, and unwavering sustainability. We work through global advocacy, innovation and collaboration, and impactful action. This year's theme for the UN International Women's Day, for all women and girls, rights, equality, empowerment, aligns very much with CIRDAP's vision, World Agriculture Forum vision, and many other entities. We have to unlock those equal rights, power, and opportunities for all. And I'll say, when I say all, in this context, it's for all women, but it's for everyone. And we have to empower the next generation, youth, particularly young women and adolescent girls, as catalysts for lasting change. It's not that the changes are just happening now, of course not. But this year is a special one because it marks the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, which was a document that revolutionized women's rights agenda. It addressed legal protection, access to services, youth engagement, and the transformation of outdated social norms and stereotypes. It focused specifically on girls' rights. Did you know that before 1995, which is not so long ago, only 12 countries had legal sanctions against domestic violence? Today, over 1,500 measures are in place, legislative measures supporting women across 193 countries. 112 countries compared to 1995, where there were only 12. Now 112 countries have national action plans on women, peace and security. But despite these advances, the world, we, are still falling short of our commitments to women and girls. There is progress, of course there is. We've all been working towards the Sustainable Development Goals, which every country has bought into. And the progress is more around declining poverty, narrowing the gender gaps in education, which is wonderful, and progress in legal reforms. But very disappointingly, as we approach that 2030 deadline for the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, not a single indicator under Goal 5, which focuses on gender equality, has been fully achieved. It has been said that ending extreme poverty among women could take another 137 years at the current pace of change. Would you believe that no country in our world has fully enacted laws to prohibit discrimination, prevent gender-based violence, ensure equal rights in marriage and divorce, guarantee equal pay, and provide access to sexual and reproductive health? Many countries have enacted some laws, but no country has fully enacted all the necessary laws. And achieving gender parity in parliaments may not happen until 2063. The cost of not investing in women's rights is high, but we have solutions. They exist that benefit women, girls, and society at large. If I'm sitting in England at the moment, and I just want to focus on one English woman that I think many women in this audience may have heard of. And it's a woman called Emmeline Pankhurst, who fought for the right of women to vote. This was in the 1800s. And she's quoted during her demonstrations and activities in the 1890s and 1900s as saying, "We are here not because we are law breakers. We are here in our efforts to become law makers." So in the 1890s, she was trying to get the laws changed. In 1918, the act was passed giving women over 30 who owned property the right to vote. Owning property. That was a key thing. Not many women owned property. She died in 1928, shortly before the act was extended to all women over 21 years of age, so they were eligible to vote. It can take time, a long time, but change is happening. We mustn't forget that. But in our lifetimes, if we want to see change, radical action is needed globally to change that current trajectory and accelerate progress on gender equality and women's rights. Some people, maybe half the population, though, as I apologized already to the DG, if I'm a little harsh on the other half of the population, sometimes I get asked, why do we need gender equality? And it's important for many reasons, and it has a profound impact on individuals, communities, and societies. And it's not just for women. Some key reasons for that, the two halves of society to be equal. Equality, gender equality, is a fundamental human right. isn't it? Every person, regardless of gender, should have opportunity to live a fulfilling life. Denying equality based on gender is a violation of our basic human dignity. When everyone, regardless of gender, has access to education, employment, opportunities, we will have a more productive and prosperous society. And countries in general with greater gender equality have stronger economies and higher levels of prosperity. Gender equality allows for those diverse perspectives in decision-making processes, whether workplace, politics, communities. And if you have diverse viewpoints, you get better innovation, better balanced decision-making. With equality, both men and women can benefit from better mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Where women have better access to healthcare and decision-making power, the families are healthier and communities. We've got a lot of harmful stereotypes and rigid gender roles, which I'll come to later, that limit us from realizing our full potential. It applies very much to women, but also some men. But we need to let people define themselves by ability and passion rather than being confined by societal expectations. We all need the same chances to succeed in life. We need the world to be fairer, and people would not be held back on the basis of gender. When gender equality is promoted, everyone is empowered to pursue goals, dreams, and ambitions without fear of discrimination or violence. Gender inequality often leads or fuels violence, discrimination, and abuse, particularly towards women and marginalized groups. Sustainable Development Goal 5, gender equality and empowering women and girls. Every country bought into it, understanding that a society that empowers women is more likely to foster inclusive and sustainable progress. And of course, if we have gender equality, you have stronger family units and more vibrant communities. In short, gender equality is essential not for the well-being of individuals, women, but for the collective progress of society where everyone is given equal rights, opportunities, and respect. We need a world that is fairer, more just, and more prosperous for all. So, as I was thinking about this, and I have to tell you that I'm not pro-women as such, but in my work, I have seen women suffer so much. Some men have suffered, but it seems that way more women suffer in different ways and often very quietly. I have some figures for those of you who are interested in numbers. Gender inequality hampers economic growth and sustainable development. Some of you may be saying, really? Yes. The cost of not investing in education and training for girls amounts to $10 trillion globally. When I say dollars, I'm still talking about US dollars. Sub-Saharan Africa shoulders from not investing in education and training for girls $210 billion, which is more than 10% of the gross domestic product, the GDP of the region. If we could close the digital gender divide, especially in low and middle income countries, we could save probably around $500 billion over the next 5 years. If we have the right policies and investments, equality is within reach. Some other little facts for you. Countries with domestic violence laws report lower rates of intimate partner violence at about a 5% level compared to those without such laws as 16%. Any intimate partner violence is bad, I would love it to be 0, but at least with laws, we can get the numbers down. If we could close the gender gap in farm productivity, smallholder farmers perhaps, and the productivity and wages, this could boost global GDP by nearly $1 trillion and save 45 million people from food insecurity. Women's labor force participation increases, interestingly, by 9 to 23% when households have access to electricity. Think about that one. Why, when there is electricity, can women participate more or wish to participate more in the labor force? And investing in a care economy could create nearly 300 million jobs by 2035. I mean, we're too slow on gender equality to meet SDG 5. We all know that. All the SDGs are suffering. But there was a gender snapshot on SDG 5, knowing that we will not achieve gender equality by 2030. We now have legal reforms because of the SDGs, 56 of them, including gender quotas for women in politics and removing gender discrimination in nationality laws. None of the 120 countries with data, as I said before, have all the necessary laws to prohibit discrimination. Frighteningly, did you know that 1 in 8 women and girls, 1 in 8, aged between 15 to 49, experience intimate partner violence each year? Girls are likely to continue to be married off as children until 2092 at the rate legislation is going. And in 2024, women held only 27% of seats in national parliaments, 35% in local governments, and 107 countries have never had a woman as head of state. Many men think or give the impression, my apologies to all the good men who are on this call, there are men who give the impression that they own women, that women are property and they can do what they want to and with women. Women have always fought for men and for their children, and now they must still fight for their own human lives. In order to help the situation, we need investment. And the Gender Snapshot report for the SDG 5 identifies 6 areas. And the 6 of them, to me, focus particularly on smallholder farming. If we had investment, so ensuring women farmers have access to land and resources, legal, information, time. It really annoys me when well-meaning people say, oh, I have this tractor that I've just adapted for women so they can do the ploughing. Well, that's really cool, isn't it? We'll do the childcare, we'll do the household chores, we'll do the education, we'll go to the hospital, and wow, thank you, we will also now plough the field. Sorry, that's my personal. So women farmers, access to land and resources, promoting climate resilient agroecology for sustainable food systems. We need to get the environment stable. We need food and nutrition security for all. And honestly, I've always said and believed that if I had an urgent job that needed doing in my own work, I look for the busiest woman and the job will be done and well without complaint. We need gender responsive financing. This is particularly important for clean energy, where women can also be in leadership positions. Maintenance of the small-scale clean energy infrastructure on small farms is where women can excel with training. If we can close that, the third one, financing, close the digital gender divide. We need at the same time not just access equality, but we have to address digital violence, which is often focused at women and young people. When I was working in Oman, I was working with some of the ladies there, and I could not take a picture of them. I wanted to take pictures of them as a memory for a really great time, but no, because they knew that their faces would be morphed onto perhaps naked bodies, and then there would be some sort of family great upset, terminal upset sometimes. We need to ensure that girls stay in school and close the gender gaps in education opportunities to make agriculture efficient, knowledge-based, and profitable. Women are not only good at growing vegetables and looking after chickens, they can do all the work in agriculture with education and opportunity. We need social protection systems and a care economy. In this aspect of the care economy, I'm looking at childcare, because without childcare, well, many women in a farming environment will work until the child is born, take a couple of days, and go back to work again. It's not like that in Europe, but where needs must. But if we have childcare, good childcare, the women can do what they want after childbirth without all the worry. We also need gender-responsive climate policymaking led by women, with a focus on women's resilience to climate change and the loss of biodiversity, and providing reparation for harm caused by carbon emissions. And you know, if you can step back and look at everything we're all doing, we need women to take the lead in at least half the initiatives that affect humanity. Women have the ambition and drive that is needed, but often not recognized, or more to the point, not accepted. Women need empowering to be able to do what they can do. And we also need to understand that for half the population that has had power by default, by tradition, by culture, not necessarily by merit, it can be somewhat challenging to accept that the other half of the population might have something better to offer in their place. So let me look at more detail about women in agriculture. Women have a crucial role, especially in developing countries where they account for almost half of the global farming workforce. But there are numerous challenges, including limited access to land, credit, and training. In addition, women have so many tasks to perform, as well as agriculture, whatever agriculture actually means in this context. There is all the home-based unpaid work and caregiving, which is mostly done by women. And for those of you who want some facts again, 74.8% of rural women in India are agricultural workers, but only just over 9% own the land. Second one, more than half of the countries in the South Asia region have less than 50% participation of women in the labor force. Pakistan has the least women labor force participation, with only 22% of women involved. More than 80% of women in the region are employed in vulnerable jobs. Those are jobs which lack any protection at all by labor laws. That's not very fair, is it? The limits on women's participation in the workforce, wherever the limits are drawn from, across Asia Pacific, costs the regional economy an estimated $89 billion every year. We have a lot of women doing low-paid domestic work with few or no employment rights. overseas, migrant labor. Men also do fairly low paid work as migrant labor, but not as low paid and potentially abused as domestic work. Just as an example, women account for nearly 2/3 of Sri Lanka's 1 million international migrants. That was back in 2011, 2012, many of whom are employed in the Gulf states as domestic workers. They have jobs, they can repatriate money to their families, but there are few or no employment rights. And then let's just mention again that unpaid domestic work and caregiving in the home that I mentioned earlier. Women in India who are employed outside the home, maybe doing a 9 to 5 office job or working in a hospital or something like that, still do 4 times as much unpaid work in the home as men. There's a gender-based role, going on here. And land, property, only 4 out of 9 South Asian countries have equal inheritance laws between men and women for land and property. All credit to Nepal, where tax exemption was induced to incentivize families to share property, which they should have done already, with their wives, daughters, and sisters. And as a result, between 2001 and 2009, women's land ownership increased 3-fold in Nepal. So in global agriculture, women are involved in planting, harvesting, the health of the crop or the fish or the animals, processing, logistics, sales, and their contributions are vital. Food security, nutrition security, rural economies, climate change mitigation. Despite their contributions, women have fewer opportunities to actually grow their businesses because farming is a business, right? Agriculture is a business. And they represent globally only 15% of landowners. There's no security there. And the women don't have the assets, the land or the property against which to obtain loans, for example. It's pretty clear that if we could empower women farmers, it would boost agricultural output. In Asia Pacific, women have an essential role in agriculture. You know that. And you know the obstacles such as limited access to resources, maybe seasonal work, exposure to climate change. There is some feminization of agriculture, such as Cambodia around Tonle Sap, where the men are going to the cities to do construction work, which is better paid, leaving the women at home to do agriculture and work in the home, and so on. To help women farmers and producers succeed, we need to get more access. They need more access to funds and loans, information, legal support, training, including business know-how and technology. And when we talk about climate change and rural economic development, gender responsive approaches are very important. This year's theme for International Women's Day for all women and girls, rights, equality, empowerment, it calls for change. I think everybody on this call can either see where they might have disempowered change or suffered from not being empowered. All of you, men, women, everyone. So I want to talk specifically about empowering change, and I'll talk about some difficult truths, uncomfortable issues, particularly in agriculture. And I've worked and lived in countries across various regions, sub-Saharan Africa, Europe, East and Southeast Asia, South Asia. I've worked with many women and men, obviously, and gained insights into the unique challenges and opportunities for women. And I'm hoping that my reflections will spark dialogue and action, your dialogue and action, towards equality and empowerment for all women and girls in agriculture and beyond. I want to first touch on something we all do: gender biases and gender inequalities, including in agriculture. Gender bias is behavior that shows favoritism towards one gender over another. We also have gender blindness, where you ignore one gender. Neither is good, as you can see. But these biases and inequalities are deeply entrenched in our culture, our habits, and we've got to understand them to address the problem effectively. Certain words are more commonly associated with men: aggression, domination, strength. You'll have seen some of those in the news recently. But both men and women use similar words when describing women. Bossy. It's a problem because that word paints a woman who is assertive and clear about her expectations as immature and inconsiderate. The word nagging is often used. Stop nagging, because it frames a woman who is attentive to detail as persistent and overbearing when being detail-oriented is a valuable trait. And if you use the word emotional in professional settings, this dismisses a woman's reasoned arguments or assessment as irrational, undermining their validity. So how about, instead of an emotional, nagging and bossy person, a passionate, persistent and opinionated person? Maybe it's just a choice of words, but the choice of words gives unconscious bias. And to look at the biases and inequities a bit further, I want you to imagine two people.
Huh? Yes. Morning.
Ma'am, your audio is muted accidentally. Mr. Abraham, could you please mute your audio, please? Ma'am, your audio.
Okay.
Ma'am, your audio is still mute, ma'am, from your side. I think it's a.
Oh,
yeah, now it's okay. Now it's okay, ma'am.
thank you. Looking at biases and inequities further, imagine two people: a successful surgeon and a compassionate caregiver. So the successful surgeon has been working in a big hospital, has many successful operations, excellent work. And the compassionate caregiver has been working very hard, looking after people, giving them peace. I'll bet most of you visualized a man for the surgeon and a woman for the caregiver. If you very quickly manage to change your mind because of the topic of this webinar, and you managed to put a woman there as the surgeon, well done. But I bet it was a man first. And it's because the language I used may have influenced that perception. There was a quantifiable terms used for the surgeon and subjective for the caregiver. So quantifiable, the successful, many, and the subjective, compassionate, caring. And this is unconscious bias, which colors our daily perceptions. I'd like to shift gears a little bit and speak about myself as a woman, a researcher, and a leader. And thanks to the support of my mother and father, I have strong skills in those areas which are often perceived as male-dominated, such as I service diesel engines, I can shoot. Then my technical skills as a plant virologist and a strong leader in international agricultural research. I can also cook, I can sew. I was always told by my family to be observant, learn, and be confident in all that you do and do it well. Mind you, I have to say that male mechanics find it hard to accept being told that the fuel tank needs to be drained to remove water and rust. Male friends dislike being beaten on the shooting range, but they're always happy to eat the food and produce clothes that they think should be mended. As a postdoc in agricultural research in the UK, there were certainly opportunities for women, including myself. But don't be deceived into thinking that equity and equality are universal in Europe. Far from it, both at home and in the workplace. In Ghana, I worked with male colleagues from both matrilineal, where inheritance goes through the women, and patrilineal groups. It was eye-opening. India has matrilineal societies in coastal Karnataka, Kerala, and the northeastern states, but those groups remain a minority. Most of India is patriarchal. A man from a matrilineal society doesn't inherently differ in identity. His understanding of equity and empowerment is shaped by that experience. I know an Indonesian leader from a matrilineal society, and his courtesy and openness is such a pleasure. He's an extremely strong leader and believes in equality. These matrilineal societies may not be radically different, but they do offer more equity and greater equality. I want to talk quickly about firsts for women in politics. We don't do that for men, do we? But they do have historical milestones. Mrs. Bandaranaike of Sri Lanka was the world's first female prime minister. Isabel Perón of Argentina, the world's first female president. And Margaret Thatcher of the United Kingdom was the world's first female prime minister elected without being an incumbent or a relative of a male leader. The DG mentioned COVID-19. We saw strong leadership from women there. Tsai Ing-wen from Taiwan introduced measures to block the spread without relying on widespread lockdowns. Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand was early to lock down, clear on her plans. In Iceland, under Prime Minister Katrin Jakobsdóttir, technology offered free testing to citizens. Sanna Marin of Finland, the world's youngest head of state, led the use of social media influencers to battle the crisis. And Norway's Prime Minister Solberg communicated directly with the country's entire population, including children, via television. These kinds of leadership innovations, simple yet impactful, raise the question, how much more could we achieve with more of such leadership across the board? Asia Pacific has women leading. Thailand, Prime Minister Shinawatra. Marshall Islands, Hilda Heine, President. Sri Lanka, Harini Amarasuriya, Prime Minister. Samoa, Fiame Naomi Mataafa, Prime Minister. And India's Draupadi Murmu, President. Women can. We can do it. Maybe even better than men sometimes, but there are precious few women who have. And it's perhaps an indictment of our times that we still need an International Women's Day. So we need to empower change, and I believe it comes from outside and it comes from within. From outside, we have International Women's Day, often women advocating for equality, as I'm doing right now, and funding initiatives that address gender and diversity. Many of the solutions are often designed with the best of intentions by men with their own assumptions about what women need. I'm not implying that men are any less emotional, nagging, or bossy, but over time, our culture has made them accustomed to deciding what's best for women. I've been on recruitment panels where a chairperson had a problem with two women sitting next to each other, but no problem with the men doing the same. Women were questioned about pregnancy or whether their husbands would approve. I've not ever heard a man being asked if their wife is pregnant or whether their wife would approve. The diversity in the thought and perspectives that we bring to the table outweighs the concerns of maternity leave. And for all of you, never, ever recruit a woman or someone only to fill the gender and diversity quota when you know their skills may not match the need. They will find it very difficult to succeed, and they will not forgive you. When religious freedom is attacked, women suffer the most. According to the World Economic Forum, where extremist ideologies come into a community and restrict freedom, gender inequality gets worse. Where there's more religious freedom, an economy becomes more stable, thanks perhaps to women's participation. The overall mindset of a society, it's less tangible, but has a significant impact on gender inequality. How society determines the differences in values of men and women is a starring role in every arena: employment, agriculture, the legal system, healthcare. It's one thing to say that the law says equality, and entirely different for women in agriculture, for example, to get the legal access and support that they need. I urge you, because of the culture we live in, especially the men in the room, give the next generation of women as many opportunities as possible. Your attitudes, your actions will shape the future for women. Our thinking, our reactions and language are all influenced by those deeply ingrained gender biases, whether we're on the farm, in the home, in the community. The actions, the gender biases may not be explicit. They can be subtle and manifest as forms of coercion. We have to recognize that. And empowering from women within, women need to build self-confidence, believe in themselves, yourselves. Speak up, even if men don't listen, or, as I know has happened to some of you, you speak up in a meeting and then suddenly your idea is no longer yours, it's someone else's. Remember that half of the world is on your side, even if not everyone speaks out loud in support. Seek out mentors, both male and female, who can offer you the strength to stand up for yourself. Be brave and celebrate your successes, no matter how small. They're the foundation of something bigger. Women are half the world's population, right? Humanity would not exist without women. Men and women are different, physically, hormonally. Our aspirations and dreams are the same. And to the men and women in the audience today, I offer these thoughts for International Women's Day and focus and think more about smallholder agriculture and how to work with that and lead change. I believe that your personal growth begins with self-awareness, that we should prioritize the well-being of others so we can unlock their full potential. I'm talking as a leader here. And remember that everyone is a leader, whether at home or at work. We must coach, mentor, and uplift everyone, regardless of gender. So on the farm, smallholder farms, a woman is still a leader trying to get things done. So we need that genuine humility. We need that self-awareness, the empathy to create environments where we can all thrive. If we focus on agriculture, particularly smallholder agriculture, and work together, we can make a meaningful difference. By empowering women in agriculture, smallholder agriculture particularly, eliminate gender biases in food systems, so the production and processing and so on, ensure gender equity in agricultural communities, providing equal access to resources and fair pay, we can achieve remarkable outcomes. Together, we can reduce the yield gaps between male and female-run enterprises. We can increase productivity. We can implement innovative technologies to address agricultural challenges, promote environmental sustainability, and support women, and in doing so, support everyone in achieving their dreams. I've tried to address the topic of empowering change, shedding light on some of those uncomfortable truths about women's roles in agriculture and beyond. And as I close, I leave you with these important challenges: empowerment, equity, and equality. I hope they inspire you all to reflect on these issues and take action to drive change wherever you can. Thank you.
Thank Yeah, I think now it was a wonderful expression, the given topic. It came with several global examples. It was very interesting. Now it is open for audience. Any clarifications? Please come forward.
Ma'am, we have some one or two questions in the chat box. Should I start with them or just okay? Okay, there is a one comment from Ramona. I think she's from Philippines. So she said that land ownership or the lack of it is also a major barrier to women's contribution to agriculture being recognized at face value and income shared equitably. And she had another questions is that are there any countries in the global south where greater progress has been made towards gender equality? So, ma'am.
That's a tough one. And I would actually rely on all of you who are on this call to say which country you think is better. I think the equality, where there is equality in some areas, we tend to celebrate those and then forget about the other things. I find the matrilineal societies, so but it's parts of Indonesia, parts of India, parts of Madagascar are different. They are the matrilineal societies, although you still see the men in the field, I think there's a greater equity in the jobs and better discussion. So more equality perhaps in the home than you would imagine. I don't want to even think about saying there is no country that the UN thinks is way better than anywhere else. In the global north, there are some countries that are better. And just from my own experience here, it's not perfect even in the United Kingdom. So I question it sometimes. I'll give you an example. In this housing area I live in, I'm a director, and with 4 men and 1 woman, myself, and I get these comments from the men. With all due respect, I'm not sure you know anything about finance. And I'm thinking, okay, I was the Director General of ICRISAT. I know nothing about finance, fine. And you know, sometimes you just think, forget it. You can't be bothered, but don't do that. Respond, please, when that happens to you.
Okay, and there is another comment from West Kabir. Women may have potential opportunity in agro-processing within the bracket food items, micro enterprises provided. We develop skill and supported by regulatory agencies. Comment. Okay, then another person, there's a question, Kiet In Min Tien, research scholar from IIT Delhi. My questions are, what kind of training would be most beneficial for women in rural areas to improve their agricultural practices? And there's a second question. For future aspiration and policy recommendation, how can government, NGOs, and private sectors collaborate to empower in agriculture? 2 questions.
I'll go back to Wais Kabir's point about
Okay. Yes,
women
yes.
having women having potential in agro-processing, micro enterprises. Yes, indeed, absolutely, can't disagree with that. But I want to tell you that whenever I worked at the World Vegetable Center, went to the UAE, and we were looking at what the farmers, men and women, could do for plastic houses for growing vegetables back at that time. And we were always doing very basic vegetable production facilities. And I said, no, wait, show them what could be. Have this amazing glass structure, CO2 pressure coming in, water recovery, all of that. Show them what can be done. And then they have a goal to move up. This is for everyone. Just because someone is poor and struggling doesn't mean they can't have ambition. So absolutely go for the microprocessing, micro enterprises, but show what can be so that people can dream, or maybe their children will be able to do it. The training most beneficial to improve their rural practices, to be honest, I would ask them. I would go to them and ask, what don't they know? Rather than us sitting here saying this is what it should be. I know you asked it from the very positive form, and I would say probably if this was to be a top-down thing, I would say financial management, business management on one hand, because agriculture is a business, and making sure they can access current technologies. So possibly the digital side, so that they can make sure their crops are healthy, or their chickens or their goats or whatever. And empowering agriculture, future aspirations and policy recommendations. Whoa. There's a tricky one. One of the things I believe government should try and do is to get all the different ministries that are relevant to work together. Normally the ministries go and work one at a time. We have agriculture there, we have health over here, we have women and children, if there is such a ministry somewhere else. We need to work together and then get policies which cut across rather than focusing on little bits, because when you focus on a little bit, you exclude people or you miss something critical that needs attention. But governments are required in order to change policies, absolutely. And I think they can all collaborate together to invest in smallholder agriculture at different levels.
Thank you, ma'am. There's another question from Radha Madhav. If a woman becomes a head of institution, can she bring a change in women protection systems as compared to a man? What was your experience as DG ICRISET?
Protecting women. I believe you're talking about harassment and those kind of things in the workplace. Those of you who knew me when I was at ICRISET would know that I tried to be fair to both genders. And I was lucky because as a woman, I could question a woman who said, oh, that one was harassing me. If it's a guy, a man, it's very difficult to then question that because you feel that you should be gender supportive. I think you have to be fair to everyone. And can you bring change? Absolutely. We made sure, for example, that there were no blind spots. We had cameras which we could put in dark and difficult areas so that no funny business could happen. But, you know, that also benefited the men because men bully each other too. So it benefits everyone. And I think you should look at, yes, making sure women are safe and respected, but remember, men have problems too. So it's both.
Thank you, ma'am. There are lots of comments and questions, but we are at the end of our time. But still, will you please enlighten reducing drudgery of women in agriculture? Can AI be the solution in reducing drudgery in agriculture?
Reducing drudgery full stop is important, right? Not just in agriculture, but in the house as well. And when I said that women with electricity tended to be more involved in the workplace, I couldn't find out why. And as I was thinking about it, I thought, whoa, does this mean with electricity, they're working later on doing much more household work? So working until 11 o'clock at night rather than slowing down when it gets dark. And I thought, oh goodness, have we just increased drudgery and they're going out to work? But maybe they had a choice there. I believe drudgery should be reduced for everybody. It's not nice if you're doing boring, heavy, hot work. It's not nice for anyone. But it's the unpaid or the family labor, the poorly paid labor. We need to take care of that. We need to support women. If I just go back to ICRISAT, something very silly, a lot of women field labor, right? A lot of them. And I went out with a group of people, which was largely male, and I said, where's the toilets for the ladies? Because they were very far. It was a long walk. It was 2-3 kilometers. Oh, it's okay. They can go in the bushes like the guys do. No, they can't. No. So it's those sorts of things that help a great deal. Put toilets out for people. Something very practical, very small. Took a week. The drudgery, the physical drudgery, why do we call it drudgery? It's work that needs to be done and it's going to the women. Is that why we're calling it drudgery? I think everybody's life needs to be made easier. It's the abused use of women's labor that I don't like. I could go on for hours, but I won't. Can AI be the solution to reducing drudgery in agriculture? I don't think so. Do we have really good AI at the moment? Artificial intelligence? No, we don't. We have a lot of machine learning, not AI. AI, if you go really far up, should have ethics. Self-ethics in the AI. Should. They don't. So machine learning. Can digital be the solution for reducing drudgery? Digital, which is information and tools, yes, I believe so. Digital agriculture can help a lot.
Thank you, ma'am. Lots of questions are pouring in the chat box, but actually, sorry to all of them, as we are over 3 minutes, ma'am has with us for over an hour early in the morning from UK, but still, if anyone has to say anything, as we are going to end our webinar, later we can take the questions and send it to ma'am, so she can respond through the email. But still, at the end, if anyone wants to say anything, DG sir, there are at least 5 to 6 questions in the chat box. If we are going to go through them, it will be, I think, more another hour. So, okay, 2 hands raised. Sir, can you allow this 2 person, sir?
Yeah, maybe we can restrict to 2 quick questions.
Yes, yes.
Not more than 2 to 4 minutes. Yes.
Yes. Okay, first question from Ms. Rakhi Borua, and then Bijaya Khader from Bijaya. Okay, Ms. Rakhi Borua, you can ask. Then Ms. Bijaya. Okay.
Thank you, Hurain. Thank you, DG sir, and thank you, Ms. Jacquelin Hughes. Actually, amidst all these depressing events, still we are trying to make some positive changes to make our footprint on this, that, and that's why, which is why this webinar today. So I mean, sincerely, I'm thanking Sir, DZ Sir, the CIRDAP Secretariat. Just my quick question is, so I have learned that we have learned from your presentations is you have last over 3 decades, you have these amounts of working experience. So whatever in your life, have you even, do you have any such experience working or brought together women with disabilities or youth, those who are affected by the leprosy in your agricultural works or interventions? Because today and yesterday I had interviewed 10 years. They are, I mean, their age ranges from 16 to 25. So they are either youth living with affected with leprosy, or women or girls they are living with physically challenged or some kind of disability. And they are from the most poverty-prone area of Bangladesh, from the Dinajpur. And now after joining, listening your presentation today from this webinar, and I'm linking with my experience that I had yesterday and today. So how to bring these 10 or these youths with the leprosy or with disability to with any income, I think livelihood initiatives. Thank you so much. And these are actually with our rural development initiatives, the linking with the rural development initiatives. And thank you so much again for this insightful, informative presentation. And so thank you again to CIRDAP. Thank you. I'm Rakhi Borua. I'm working with Center for Disability Development. Thank you.
Shall I take that one, Hurain, first?
Yes, ma'am. Then.
Okay. Have I had experience? A little bit of experience working with post-conflict injuries in West Africa and trying to get agriculture in a form that the patients, they were still patients at that time, could handle. And also, it's not the same as leprosy at all, but malaria, endemic. So in both cases, and in the case of leprosy, you've got people who cannot work in the same way as able-bodied, truly, fully healthy people. And the way we worked with some of this was for the malaria, it's the taking it easy and obviously you're trying to stop the spread of malaria, but actually in the field, they need to work less and slower because they cannot work at the full rate. I mean, if I had that malaria, I'd probably be lying in bed there in the field. For the women who had the malaria, and in the post-conflict situation, the women, it actually ended up being vegetables that they could handle better. They were more profitable too, so you could have a smaller area and profitable production. And I just suggested to Raki that something that they can handle rather than forcing people to do more. People will start to do more when they get going. But right at the start, if you've got malaria or you don't have legs, do something which is doable and profitable. That's just my advice. Thank you.
Now,
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Now, Vijaya, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I think woman plays a major role in agriculture, starting from the sowing to the harvesting. Not only that, even the processing also. It's not a question from my side. I want to give some suggestions. When you are talking about the disease reduction, it is regarding the using of the equipments. You have to really fabricate the equipment suitable to the specific to the location, because we cannot just say, okay, these are the equipments you can be used in such type of the thing. No, it is a location specific equipments. That way we can really reduce the disease. That is another thing. And one more thing, we have to just give the time to time skill-oriented training programs to the women to create a knowledge, because creating a knowledge and improving their skills is very, very important. She is very potential. Woman is very potential. Agriculture itself is a feminine. I think we all know about that one. So that means her role is very, very important, starting from the sowing to the processing also. So we have to give the repeated orientation, skill-oriented training programs. And the third aspect I would like to say is, we have to provide some sort of facilities in the field for the crush. That is to keep the small children. Suppose if the younger age laborers are coming up, so we have to give some place for them to keep their children also, because that is more, it gives a more of the emotional satisfaction to the mother. That is another one. And coming to the lastly, when you are talking about all the various ministries, they have to work together in collaborative way to really have the progress, especially in the field of the agriculture or the role of the woman in the agriculture. That is my suggestion, and it's not the question, because we have to really work in a holistic approach. It is not an individual approach or anything, and time to time you have to give the skill-oriented training program. This is what really I emphasize, and drudgery reduction with regard to the usage of the equipments. For example, it's a weed remover. So you have to fabricate the equipment location specific to that woman or to that field level. So this is my suggestion only. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A lot of points there. I'll address two of them, as I know we're out of time. The small children, the care is definitely needed, and we need investment.
Yes.
What I do not want to see, though, if I have any influence at all, is that small children who should be at school, they should be at school. But yes, I agree that a new mom needs someone to look after the kid if she's going to try and do her agricultural work, which she may want and have to do because it might be her only business, perhaps. The adaptation of equipment, a very sore point for me from yesterday. It seems that a lot of equipment is designed for men with a lot of upper body strength, which women don't have. Women tend to have lower body strength, but not upper body strength.
Yeah.
You don't see so many muscles up here, right? Even undoing bolts to change the wheel of my car, I'm not strong enough to do it. Why they design it like that? You can design it a different way, and then you can undo them. So rather, I confess that I got a man to undo them, but the man couldn't undo them either. So I thought, yes, we're okay. We're equal. It's very important to make sure the equipment is suitable. In Nigeria, some equipment was designed for women, which could not take, in Nigeria, they carry the baby on the back with a wrapper here, cloth. And the way the seat was designed for the previous users, the men, the woman couldn't sit back far enough because of the baby. A silly thing, but super important. And also, where there was a culture for the woman to wear long dress, and I'm not sure why that culture is always there, but it's there. The long dress, sorry, or the scarf was getting caught in the wheels, which is pretty lethal. So you need to look at all those issues in designing equipment which women can use and use effectively. You don't want them to be totally exhausted after trying to plow with something that's too heavy, requiring a lot of upper body strength, for example. But you're right, it's location specific and gender specific. Thank you, Vijaya.
Thank you, ma'am. Still lots of questions and comments in the chat box, but we have out of our time. So now, DG sir, I am requesting you, sir, you have the closing remarks for this special webinar, sir. I'm so sorry to those who are pouring their questions and comments in the chat box, so we cannot permit it this time. So better next time. Okay. Yeah, I'm requesting the Honorable DG CIRDAP for the closing remark of this special webinar. Okay, can we wait for a minute? Okay, yes, DG sir has come. Sir,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. Sorry for this, technological issues. Thank you, Dr. Jacqueline. Successfully, you could able to, comprehend more than 3 decades of your experience in 60 minutes. You made, very sincere effort. Uh, nicely. Thank you very much. You could able to cover all dimensions of women in agriculture and the rural development. Of course, if we blend agriculture and rural development, it covers everything under the sun. It's a very broad area, but still important, priority areas were, deeply discussed by you. Thank you very much. At the end, a few things still in my mind. I would like to use this opportunity to share. Number one, we know the problem and also we know the solution. Why there is a disconnection? Maybe at panchayat level or at parliament level, we don't have adequate data to justify and push the issues. Generation of clean, gender-specific, location-specific data, it becomes a very powerful tool in the hands of policymakers to push, to mainstream the gender. That is one strong need I feel which is required. Sometimes data is also available, but it never reaches the policy making platform. That issue is also there. The second one, we have seen wherever women are together, it's a success story. You take Amul, you take many women successful cooperatives, NGOs, especially you are aware Kutumbashri, which is a very successful self-help group movement in Kerala, where 48 lakh women, they are together. They are financing their activities, skilling, linking them to market. And when it was started, it was just a livelihood mission. Today, many are in a position to make the policies for the state and the nation by the strength of their Kutumbashri movement association. So as a group, they are very, very successful. Promotion of women groups, I think it is going to yield definitely something productive in this direction. And normally we try to, design exclusive women programs and try to implement it. So that way we are isolating women more. It is my feeling. Is it possible to mainstream gender issue in all the programs? If it is a youth program, some component of young girls. If it is farmers, farm woman component. In every program, this women component is inbuilt. We will not be somewhere, but we will be everywhere. I think being everywhere is very, very important. And very intensive facilitation is required. We have encountered, many self-help groups and women groups in different parts of the globe. So only training is given, not linked to credit. So the development stops there. The training and credit is also given, but not mentoring is there. So all through the entire process, some kind of facilitation, hand-holding to this group is required at least for one cycle. Once they see the challenges faced in one cycle, and going to the next cycle becomes easy and they're self-confident. Many are there, but probably in the discussion, one or the other way, all important aspects were covered. Thank you very much, Dr. Jacquelin, again for accepting our request and sparing your time. We have, participants from several countries, and the message is very clear. When they go home back, definitely these things reflect in their mind, in their thinking and action. Let us hope for that. Thank you, one and all.